Joyce Watkins. I am not one for credentials, so I'm not going to give you any. Assume. Actually, I studied at San Diego State, and currently I'm in an internship program at CRASH.
What's CRASH?
CRASH is a long-term residential treatment facility for fully indigent or low-income drug addicts and alcoholics.
Thank you.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Race and class. And I'm also a professional black person. So I think that I actually got my little ID card.
Yeah, really.
Not nearly enough.
Certified.
You would think that it would be worth at least enough to get me cable, but no.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you. I try. I do. This is. I can't see everyone. Oh, bless you. This is a continuation. If I stand up, can you hear me better? No. I don't know.
Fine. Whatever's good for you.
We're not gonna, I'm just trying to be helpful. All right. Yesterday we talked about basically the food distribution system and its inherent inequity for people of color and for working class people. And I want to make sure that the conversation stays broad and it's not just about, if anything over there blows, someone will let me know, right? Okay.
I know.
Stay.
It's kind of a
No, nothing's strange.
Exactly.
It's okay.
We're like in this little wind tunnel over here. And yesterday I asked people to go home and think of an exercise, and I hope they did it, and basically come back with thoughts and ideas. And the exercise was, think of a table. So I'm going to ask all of us to do that. Right after I finish hearing your names, why you came, and why you give a damn about race and class. I'll start with the person who very willingly is sitting in the front.
My name is Isha, and I'm interested in race and class because I work mostly in IB, music therapy with children, and I noticed that there's a huge difference between what parents give their kiddos and what they believe is right and who they're influenced by, than by parents who live maybe more central. So there's definitely a discrepancy that I see, just what people think is right and what influences their thoughts on what is right. So I want more information.
Thank you. How about you? And I'm going to ask you to actually speak to me, but keep this nice gentleman and this camera in mind. So speak up a little bit.
Okay. My name is Richie. I'm really interested in food issues. For the last year or so, or last couple of years, I've been going to various workshops and hearing different issues that come up and everything. So I've never attended a class and race workshop before, so I thought this would be interesting.
Thank you. I know why you're here.
Yeah. My name is Raquel. I am here because I was here yesterday and I loved the talk, and I just felt like it was a great discussion that I'm excited to continue.
Awesome.
My name's Gina. I'm just generally interested in how race affects class here in our society.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Matt, and I'm just interested how race affects class, and how different you put deconstruction in. So it's interesting that something theoretical could influence, hopefully, figure out the problem and hopefully help the solution.
Lillian.
Hi, yes, I was here yesterday and last year's good conference. I missed part one of yours last year, so I want to take the whole comprehensive session again. And also because
Online, if you want some more of my fabulousness.
yes. And I just wanted to learn more about how it affects my life, and most importantly, the lives of others, and especially the ones who impact me by just being in the society.
Hey, I'm Joel, and one of the things that gives me the most just verve and passion in life is being able to connect with the natural world, just plant seeds and smell fresh air and go in the ocean. And I get the sense that a lot of people of color should have those opportunities. Their ancestors have had those opportunities, and they don't get to do that. And I just think that's unfair. They're not getting to experience a part of life, and I feel like I don't get to experience the part of life that a lot of minorities have, because there's a different culture and a different way of relating to each other and an openness that could really benefit white people. So I wanna get in with this.
I'm Liz, and I missed yesterday, so you'll have to give me the quickly up to speed. But one of the things that I'm really interested in, I teach a lot of immigrant students, and we're not supposed to bring food to class, but wow, when people do, which I don't know anything about it. I'm always amazed at the richness and variety and the kinds of, I guess, native foods to different cultures that are so much healthier than, they were always asking me, what's American food? Oh, I don't have a good answer to that. So I'm really interested in
Ritz crackers.
Yeah, exactly. Ritz crackers and what? Fried food.
Yeah.
So that's
Fried Velveeta and Ritz.
Oh.
So I think we have a lot to learn from people from other places and who have other backgrounds.
I don't want to be taped.
Okay.
My name's also Lizzie, and I also was not here yesterday. But,
Do you mind having your voice heard?
No.
Okay.
That's okay. Sorry, I'm a little sick too, but I don't know, I just have a real deep interest in social and environmental justice, and see that they're intimately intertwined, and you can't have one without the other. And race and class are obvious inequities, So I just interested in learning more about that.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to give a really quick 5-minute synopsis and tell me if I'm missing any points of what we did yesterday, just to get people up to speed and so that we can talk about what I hope to be able to talk about today, which is internal process and long-term solutions. What we talked about yesterday was lack of access. We talked about, most importantly, the mindset that some people are simply not allowed or worth the effort to be able to get good, fresh, healthy food accessible to them at all times. But we also talked about the fact that it's not just about food, it's not just about color, it's not just about class, but it's a conflation of all of these things. And it's about us and our attitudes. And one of the things that we ended with talking about, can you hear? Are you totally in the circle? I just want to see if I can see you.
Are you Leslie?
Lace.
Lacey, sorry. You were recommended.
Oh, wow.
You're famous.
Well, I hope I do you proud. What we were talking about was, at the end of it, was a little bit about talking about what our own feelings and attitudes are about it, and not just the good, warm, fuzzy, Hallmark moment, everybody's on Lifetime channel feelings, because those are really easy. And usually when we start talking about class and race, people want to move to the kumbaya moment really fast. We're all the same, let's all hold hands in a circle and sing. The fact of the matter is that the inequities that we talked about yesterday, the disparities that we talked about yesterday, come not because of Hallmark moments, but because of real problems in systemic issues that threaten these communities. And it's not just about brown people. Two of the things that I didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday that I am just really nervous. Two of them, yeah, part of me wants to put my computer away. It's like I don't care about anything else about but my life is in that thing.
Do you mind holding this just for a second?
Oh, that would be awesome. I would rather not. You see that? It looks like a purse, but it isn't. There's a space for it. I'm an old lady. I gotta have style. Is talking about ambivalence. What is it about food justice or about certain people having the same access and accessibility and availability as we have? Once we get rid of kind of talking about the barriers, and I think we did a really good job about talking about barriers yesterday, what does that feel like? What about, I want you to think about your own, sit back, I want you to think about your own lives for a minute. And so I'd like for you to do a really small exercise with me. I'd like you to kind of close your eyes if you want to, you don't have to, but I want you to think about the last thing that you ate at your house. Where were you? What was it that you were eating? Were you eating with people or by yourself? What did the table look like? Or if it wasn't a table and it was a sofa and a coffee table, you can say that too. or if it was bed, it can be bed, or if you were standing up in front of the sink hurriedly because you've got 10 minutes, it can be that too. And now I want you to take that and I want you to extend it 100 million fold. So now you've got the longest kitchen table on the planet. And now I want to ask you, does anything change? What you ate, does that change? Who's sitting with you, if anyone? Or are you still by yourself at that table? And here are some other questions. It takes a lot of energy to feed 100 million people. Who's doing the cooking? Who's doing the cleaning up? Most importantly, who isn't there? I've done this exercise with myself, and it's been amazing. I've got every single famous person that I really like at my table. That's obvious. And I also had to because since my kitchen table is really messy, well, I didn't say that I had a clean kitchen table, so now I've got a messy kitchen table that can seat 100 million people, and it's still every bit as messy. So I'm still cleaning off stuff. Don't worry, I've got 100 million years worth of bills right here, so I can sit down and make space for you at the table. The question is, what did the table look like? I'm open. Anybody can answer.
Wood.
Wood. Good wood? Yeah.
Nice, stained, dark wood. Long rectangular table.
Nice.
Sort of narrow.
Who was there?
A love interest. Yeah, just a lot of smiling. I don't know that I went so far with the people as I did the visualization of just a long table full of food and the table. I was really into what the table was looking like. Just amazing.
I think you just said something really interesting, and I want you to remember what you said because we're going to come back to that. And it's not bad. It's not bad. Trust me. Anybody else?
I remember yesterday you were saying that it doesn't necessarily have to be a table, so I wasn't actually imagining a table because I don't normally eat at my table. I eat on the couch.
There you go.
Me and my family, we take our plates to the couch and we'll sit and talk. So I was kind of imagining a big family party, a really long couch that kind of goes in a circle.
Cool. Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, just imagining my friends and extended family that I don't get to see very often, and friends that I haven't seen in a long time, from college and high school, and just all their faces, eating, talking, laughing, and sharing what we've been up to, and enjoying each other.
So who was there? Just friends?
I said friends, all my extended family and immediate family, just everyone that I feel like I love and care about in my life. So it'd be friends and family.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Anyone else?
My last meal was breakfast with my kids and my husband, and everybody ate something different. And I was trying to imagine that times however many people were coming, and I realized we all need to eat the same thing if I'm gonna make that breakfast for everyone. So just practicality issues.
I like that. I like the idea of everyone, and I think that we just picked up these three very important points. One, that everyone has accessibility, or at least the choice to eat what everyone else gets to eat. So no one's sitting there chowing down on a Belgian waffle while someone is over here eating porridge, unless they want to eat porridge. But I like the idea of having choice at your table. And I like your table. I like the fact that it's wood. But I also think that it's really interesting. I'm gonna stay. I really think that it's really interesting that you couldn't visualize, or that wasn't the first thing you thought of, the people that were at the table.
For some reason, it was the aesthetics of the table and wanting to have I don't know why. Maybe that's what it was.
I think you have just, in a nutshell, illustrated, for me at least, the entire food justice movement. That we care a lot about the aesthetics, we care a lot about what the table looks like, we care a lot about maybe even what we serve, but we don't put a lot of thought about the people who are going to be eating. And I think that it is a function of privilege not to have to think about who winds up at that table and who does the work around it, who does the fun part, which is the eating, who does the cleaning up afterward. I'll tell you who didn't make it into mine, and I'm ashamed to say that because basically a lot of my work is done with poor and indigent people. When I close my eyes and I visualize my table, I don't visualize homeless people. I don't visualize people that are that need more than I can give them, or more than what I feel I can give them. So people with dietary restrictions, I'm not thinking kosher, I'm not thinking halal, I'm not thinking any of that. It's you're going to eat whatever it is I give you. I'm not thinking people that don't look like me, and I'm not just thinking in terms of color. Everyone that was at my table was smart and erudite, made great witty comments as I served them onion confit, which of course everybody loved, and I did make it on Friday and it brought. But there wasn't anyone who I personally felt shouldn't be at that table, who didn't deserve to be at that table. And that's where I have to start confronting myself. This has been an amazing exercise. This is the second year in a row I've done a food justice workshop. And one of the things that I've had to confront really head on, really hard, was the disconnect. You just have to stay here. The disconnect between what I say I believe in when it comes to food justice, who should be included in this metaphorical table that we all have in our heads, and how I actually live my life in this world. If you think for a moment that I am saying that you have to go onto the corner on 25th and Commercial, round up every homeless person you see, and bring them to your house in Point Loma, I am not saying that.
Yeah.
But I am saying that only concentrating on people for whom it would be easy to feed does really big disservice to other people. And that automatically draws the circle, because the table that we just talked about was the circle that delineates who's in, who gets to have the benefits of this food revolution that we talk about, and who's out, who doesn't get the benefits of the food revolution that we talk about. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
One of the things that I have written here that's now smeared with strawberry juice is that to talk the way we're talking is downright insurgent. It's revolutionary. To talk about extending the table, which is what we're talking about, to as many people as we can, as much as we can, as often as we can. It involves risks. And some of those risks are internal risks. Confronting yourself. I care very deeply about the work that's going to go on, hopefully past here, when you go to your own circles of influence and talk about this stuff. But I care more than anything else about internal process. But there's something else that I did read right here. Oh, yeah. Internal process is great, but it can't all be internal. What might be the line between becoming self-aware about food justice issues and becoming self-absorbed about them? It's questions. I wrote mostly questions, because I don't want to talk the whole time.
Aware versus what?
Self-absorbed.
So self-absorbed in the negative sense, or in the sense that you're interacting with all sorts of things that you weren't interacting with?
It can be either one. It's however you define it.
I would say that like the difference between being self-aware and self-absorbed is you do things that if you're self-absorbed into the world that you have a feedback loop, that you're almost having a conversation outside your mind that you would just be if you were self-aware. You just keep it inside and not say anything, not do anything.
I think that's absolutely right. There's a line from people that share my faith tradition that say, he's so heavenly minded, he's no earthly good. And I think that a lot of times self-absorption can do that to you. You're so concerned about getting it right and doing it well that nothing actually ever happens because you're trying to find the exact perfect experience. Think about our table again. And now let's make it a formal dinner. And everything has to be absolutely perfect before we can invite these people in. And this is what we tend to do. If it's just people that are like us, we don't care whether or not there's mail on the table or whether or not it's a little sticky from breakfast this morning. Oh, just come on in. But if it's people that we feel are either higher than us socially or lower than us socially, and we're sharing the table with them, all of a sudden the table starts looking different. That's what I'm talking about, with whether or not the foods change. times when we serve people that we feel are less than. That's when we break out the Velveeta and the Reds. But we're afraid to share with people who have more than we do, because God knows what we have to offer isn't the same. It's still the same idea of exclusion, but it's not equal and it's not flat. And I'm very much into flat. Oh, here's a good one. What would it mean to put our money where our mouths are? And another way of putting that is, what can people who identify as middle class do to leverage their own power? First, that might mean talking a little bit about power, but to leverage their power as food consumers and as food makers.
It's funny because a lot of people here think that they eat Mexican food, and they love Mexican food, and yet like the people behind the counter are invisible, and their families on the other side of the border are invisible. And you could do that with any ethnicity. It's like food is such a good gateway into like starting to appreciate other people, but sometimes we just stay in the gate.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the ways that we can just even recognizing that we're on this side of the counter and there's someone else that doesn't get exactly the same thing that we have that's on the other side of the counter, both physically and metaphorically speaking. Because we're talking a lot of metaphor here. I think that's really important. What about the stuff that we were talking about yesterday, for those who were here yesterday, which was accessibility to foods, even stores like Albertsons? And, we talked about my bag yesterday that made a lot of people twitch.
Yeah.
And I got it on purpose. Why would my Albertsons bag make people twitch, do you think?
It's a cheap store.
What?
What did you say?
Because it's a cheap store.
I said because it's corporate.
Yes.
Oh.
And yes. What are better options?
The farmer's market.
Okay. Let's
Run
absolute
your
that.
own.
Okay.
Mom and pop restaurants.
Nice.
Growing your own.
Henry's incidentally is a corporation
Yeah, they are.
owned by Whole Foods. So is Fresh and Easy, owned by English conglomerate. What?
The People's Co-op.
Tesco.
Yes. If you happen to be able to have the means and the opportunity to get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you thinking? Yeah, I think People's as well. The reason I did this is because if I had one, and I don't, I would have brought a Walmart bag and just basically made everybody's head explode as I walked around here. The fact of the matter is that working class people and even middle class people shop at that store. I think that a lot of times what we wind up doing, and this is where internal process comes in, our own individual attitudes and beliefs and values come in. To what extent do we consume food justice, or consume progressivism, or consume even equality without necessarily living it? We say that we want to extend the table to as many people as possible. I'm going to ask you for a third metaphor. Let's make this table that you have 100 million people sitting at, let's make it a potluck. And let's say that someone comes. Oh, thank you. Let's say that someone comes with an Albertsons bag with a dish made from Velveeta.
Yeah.
Is she welcome at the table?
Of course. Why not?
Okay.
It's a potluck. Everybody's invited, regardless of where they got it or what they made. Isn't that the idea?
That is the idea, and I think you said it beautifully, Lillian. Thank you. But a lot of times, again, using our metaphorical table, that's not always true. That's the way I think that it should be, and that's the way that I hope that it winds up being. But I haven't seen that very often, and I think that that's kind of part of the problem. If people bring their Albertsons food to a table that's beautifully organic and it's filled with fresh, shiny beets that's just been washed over with a nice, beautiful honey almond organic glaze, what do you do? I mean, it's one thing to say that of course they're welcome at the table, But are you going to eat what they cooked?
Mm.
Depends.
I would. I have a
Good,
small
smells
story,
good.
and it's a story that I told last year, but it's still a good story, and I'm going to use it. I used to work on political campaigns, and one campaign that I was doing, I had this very old, very amazing, like 78, 80-year-old Filipino woman down in the South Bay who did 8 hours worth of knocking on doors and phone banking for us. I mean, she was tireless. She came back on Sunday, and she did it again. And she just was there. It was just to the presence where it's like, give her her own coffee cup. This woman, this is making this a job.
Number one.
Yeah.
And one day she came, and there was this huge thing of lumpia. I mean, huge. I'm still trying to figure out how the chick found the time to make the lumpia, but she did. And you should have seen what the response was to the lumpia by some of the staffers.
Oh, what?
Well, I guess you know where the story is going. It's exactly what happened. People were breaking it open and scrutinizing it and wondering what was in it and asking her about the ingredients and what they're allergic to and what they can't eat and what they can't do. And eat the lumpia.
Your friend made it.
You're an allergy? What?
Even if you have an allergy,
Or if you're a vegetarian and you don't want to eat.
You can smell, you know it's me. Come on.
I think that I'm saying that a little bit metaphorically, but I think that there was a way to refuse it gently and to not necessarily make her feel awful. As opposed to, I understand that people have allergies. I understand that there's just some things that people simply won't do. But to break it open right in front of her and scrutinize it, and going back to the metaphor, that's what we do with poor people. That's what we do with people of color. That's what we do with working class people when they bring what they have, their talents, their abilities, their enthusiasms to the table. We do a lot more scrutinizing of what they bring than we do to ourselves. And we need, excuse me?
You know, at the thing, at the lunch thing,
Yeah.
well, I had my shades on, and I could pretty much identify everything on site. But the soup, I just wasn't sure about, because it's kind of beige, bland looking. There's no tip off to what might have been in it. So I did kind of get the scooper and kind of sniff it a little bit. Is that okay?
I have no problem with scrutinizing.
Okay.
I do have a problem with marginalization. And what we did, and I'm going to say we because I was on staff there, and I don't think that she made a huge distinction about the people who took her food and the people who refused it.
Right.
What she remembers was that she felt it. And she didn't come back again.
Oh.
Okay.
Hey, we got him. But the point is that that's what happens. We say that we want everyone at the table bringing everything that they have. And then we wonder why there aren't that many people at the table. People will come and they will gingerly and reverently bring their bowl to the table. And because it's not quite the right or enough educational level, because they're not saying it in exactly the right way, because they're not using the language that we in academia a lot of times have grown used to using. Because they talk a little bit too loud and they forget that we stack. And they're so excited and they want to say something. And we, by our body language, by our clothing, by our own attitudes, let them know that they're not very welcome at that table, and then we wonder why they don't come back. And then later on, we go, we don't know why we don't have people from East County coming here. We don't know why we don't have people from the South Bay. Well, sure we do.
Couldn't be us.
And I'm not just talking about people of color. I'll tell you a story that happened yesterday that I'm still not sure what the outcome is. I have a really good friend of mine who lives in Lakeside. And she came to hear me talk yesterday, all the way from Lakeside. And she is a legal secretary. She works for child support for the county. We both work for the county. And she looked like exactly what she was. Middle-aged, middle-class suburban lady from East County. Plunked here in this conference, full of the land of organic cotton. She looked out of place. She felt out of place. And no one went to any great lengths to make her feel comfortable. I think that that's important. When we say that we want everyone to be able to come, but they're not exactly being the lifestyle choices that we make, the same lifestyle choices that we make, do we make harder barriers for them to be able to come in and participate and partake in the conversation? I am not saying that you throw away your organic cotton and go and buy mounds and mounds of polyester at Walmart, but I am saying that when that table gets extended, the odds are that people are going to start looking a lot different than you do. They're going to bring foods that you're not very familiar with. They're not going to speak the same way or in the same style. And how do we accommodate that?
Yeah.
Am I making sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's something.
Do you have room to scoot
Nobody
over?
wants to be berated. People do the best they can.
Señora, ¿quiere sentir?
So do we in our response to the marginalized. The difference is this. We raise our eyebrows and look askance at marginalized peoples, whether they be working class or people of color, or if they hit the trifecta and they're both. But we expect them to take us at face value when we say it. And what I mean by that is, we were talking about access and what we see in marginalized communities. And basically all they've got is fast food options or corner bodegas. The fact of the matter is that you would seem to have the conversation, if we actually went back and listened to the conversation from yesterday, you would think that there was not a single KFC or Wendy's or Albertsons or 7-Eleven in richer and whiter neighborhoods. And you would think that there is not a single white family in San Diego County that subjects their children to that crap.
It's one of Rancho Bernardo.
That's not
exactly.
true.
Yep.
Probably
They
two,
do.
huh?
There is.
All the time. Excuse me?
There's a Albertsons in Rancho Bernardo.
There's an Albertsons pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Except, of course, 3 zip codes, 92113, 92114, and 92105, except for this one.
Right.
So, yeah, there's Albertsons everywhere.
Yeah.
It's become something of a symbol, but most people do not shop at Whole Foods. Most people, for that matter, don't even shop at, say, Trader Joe's or Henry's. Otherwise, it would be this influx, and you would never, ever, 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 ever get to get your organic rice cake. We cannot have that. The problem with it is, though, is that when we start looking at the metaphor of extending the table, I'd like to think about extending it out in terms of where we shop, and in terms of what we were talking about, kind of appropriating or making environmentalism or food justice a lifestyle choice rather than a commitment and a calling and a conviction, which I think are the 3 things that it should be. We want to start using alliterative words, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The question that I would ask, and probably not the people sitting in this circle, because you've demonstrated a commitment and an interest in this subject, but I would ask you to think about this. Let's just say that we start extending the table not just to the table itself, but where we bought the food for the table. What if people who look like me bombarded Whole Foods in La Jolla or in Hillcrest? How many people would stop going? How much of going to Whole Foods is based on cachet and lifestyle than it is? Albertsons has organic choices. Albertsons has as many organic choices because it's a larger store than Whole Foods. Walmart has organic choices. But we're willing to judge people for making not necessarily always the best choices, but the best choices they can in the moment for themselves. But we do the same thing. When I say we, I mean just basically middle class America. I know that I have a commitment to eat well and to eat right and to eat healthily, but I am not going to lie. I make expedient choices all the time. I figure a good week, I'm at 80%. I'm at 80%, I made choices that I would be willing to sit around this this circle and tell y'all.
Yeah, right.
Now, what would you think of me if I told you that last Tuesday my boss decided that we were going to go to Mickey D's? And I went, and I ate it, and I think I'm pretty sure I'm going to live to see 50.
Right.
Yeah. Does that completely negate the other 80%? White families, middle-class families do that all the time. The difference is that they can go, I've only got 10 minutes to soccer practice, and go and get the 20-piece McNuggets and make it up the next day with a good meal. As opposed to a family that does the 20-piece McNuggets because it's the best, absolute best option that they have. What we're talking about is allowing options and choices, even if the choices aren't the choices we want them to make 100% of the time. How much time do I have?
It's been 35 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, wow, 35 minutes. Yeah, I actually said that. I'm actually doing this pretty well without notes. What do you know?
Conviction, huh?
What?
It's a conviction.
It's a conviction. And I read this about 10 times.
Oh, yeah.
What can I tell you? I want to talk about money for a minute. Just for giggles, what's the average poverty level for a family of 4 in the United States?
For giggles?
What's the poverty like?
Oh, what's the poverty like? 29 something, I learned.
For a family of 4?
Maybe.
Okay. Does anyone else have any numbers? Throw
In
them
the
out.
movie?
I can't remember. I was 50.
Yeah, right.
20? So we've got 32, we've got 29, we've got 20. Any other takers?
14, 17.
It's not quite that bad. You're the closest. $22,000 a year for a family of 4.
Okay. So it's 22, okay.
What?
It's 22? I thought I was say 24.
22. It might have risen in 2011, but the last figures I looked at was $22,000 change.
Okay.
CPI here in San Diego, Center for Policy Initiative, says that here in San Diego County, it takes, what did I say? CPI states that a family of 2 needs to do at least $37,000 a year to make even their basic needs. A family of 4 needs at least $46K. That's before you start thinking about organic onion confit, and I'm thinking about that because that's what I made on Friday. So making economic justice a priority so they can enjoy the lifestyle choices we demand of them is imperative. What do you think I mean when I say that?
Yeah, say it again a little slower.
Making economic justice a priority so that... Wow.
Maybe put like the chair and the table in front of it.
What?
Maybe put the chair in front of the leg.
I think that's pretty light.
And then, I mean that metal one. But anyways.
It just took the air, didn't it? Wow.
It
that
did.
was mostly late.
It's a balloon.
Yeah. Well,
We're already like halfway through issues.
I think that at the end of the day, can you hear me now? Yes, I can. I think that at the end of the day, and I think I'm coming to the end of this, we need to have an attitude of the 3 C's that I talked about, but also an attitude of generosity and openness. And I think that that's what I'm talking about in terms of internal process and in terms of how we deal with another person on an individual level, because until we can deal on a one-to-one level, we can't even think about making systemic changes on a grander, more global scale. My faith tradition has a saying that God loves us enough to meet us where we are, but loves us entirely too much to let us stay there. I think that the same thing can be said when we're asking people of color and people who are working class and people who are different than us to take the risk, and we are asking them to take huge risks in changing behaviors and attitudes to make themselves healthier, to make their families healthier. We need to love them where they are. We need to love them when they're in line getting the number 7 at McDonald's. We need to love them when they're in line at Albertsons. We need to love them when they're at Fresh and Easy. We need to love them if eventually they wind up at Whole Foods. We need to love them unconditionally. And I think that they'll feel that love if it's there. I think that if we're coming down from a top-down position telling them what they should be doing and saying it in an angry tone of voice, being angry with them for being too stupid to make the right choices, they're going to feel that as well. I wrote something here where it says, fixing the problems of people that we think are irredeemable. And I think that's a big sometimes part of what we're talking about. We have to decide that the people that we are not helping, not even partnering with, but are in solidarity with and are allies with, are people that are worth our time and our effort and, yes, our sacrifice. So the question that I would ask of you to take back is, what kind of sacrifice can I make this happen? What kind of influence do I have in my own circles of influence? How many of you are affiliated with some sort of organization? What can I do in my own circles of influence to get this culture of generosity and commitment and call to every single person, regardless of economic status, regardless of social class, regardless of race? So those are the questions that I'm throwing out. And thank you for listening. Yes?
I'm really enjoying this conference, but I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were just noticing like how many people here are from City Heights. How many, I don't know, if it's about food justice, shouldn't it be affecting the people in the community that we're in? And maybe there are a lot of people, but it just seemed that way to me, that there was kind of like an academic and then actually applied disconnect going on.
There was. Although yesterday when we broke up into neighborhoods, I was pleasantly surprised to see pretty much fully a third of the people moved over into the Mid-City contingent. Mid-City isn't just City Heights. They were also counting, I think, North Park, Normal Heights, Kensington, maybe Hillcrest. But it was really awesome to see that. I think that putting this here, as opposed to a more academic setting, was a symbolic move, probably. But it also had some other things, too. I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Choice. It's one thing to put it at UCSD or Alliant and then tell people from City Heights you have to find a way to get there. It's another thing to put it here and give them a choice. Even if the first year that we ever do this, they don't make the choice. And I think that you're hitting on something really important. Because I think a lot of times we will do things in solidarity with, as allies, with people of color, with working class people. We do it exactly once. And if we don't have exactly the outcome that we think that we should have, we never do it again and we declare it a failure. And we don't declare it a failure, we declare the people that we were supposedly in solidarity with failures. Usually it takes 3 or 4 or 5 or even 10 times to create some sort of a behavior change. It means you need to be in the room more than once to be able to affect that sort of change. So that might mean that they need to be able to trust us to be here next year, and trust us to be here the next year, and trust us that the only time that we mention City Heights isn't 2 days out of 365. We need to be willing to partner with them the other 363. And if we're not willing to do that, being angry at them, and I'm not saying that you're angry, but going, where are they, where are they, where are they? I think that it would have been very nice if, once we decided on this, that we basically bombarded City Heights. Okay, here's what we're going to be doing. And a lot of organizations are doing that already. But you can't ask more necessarily of what people would do in other parts. But we can give them access, we can give them choice, and we can make sure that the table is as friendly and as open and as accessible as possible. Does that make sense? Anybody else? And not just questions, comments too.
I don't know. When I think about it in one way, I think about like communities, how people, if you know, you have to go and sit at their table for them to come and sit at your table.
Absolutely.
And it's hard when people are not so flexible that they, I mean, like, you don't want to go into someone's home or some place where they've set something up and not turn down their food. But, like, you do want them to come to you and, like, serve your food and, like, have them take it home with them in a certain sense.
Yes. Yes.
So it's kind of, I don't know. It's something that I feel like capitalism has something to do with, because we, like, in an anthropological sense, people, communities, when they interacted, you're there, you're going to have to do what they do, you know what I mean? You're going to have to play along with their culture. That's the only diplomatic way to get around.
Right.
But now we're, like, I mean, pretty apathetic, because, like, when it comes down to it, even people go to Whole Foods, it's, I mean, we're going there and we're rather than, like, concerned with the processes behind that it's a corporation when it comes down to it. And
it's a corporation.
And they're marketing, like, organics material. They're thinking about who their owners are and all these kinds of things. But it's so, like, I mean, so people want to, like, make a statement with their own lives, but they aren't necessarily thinking about the processes that go into it. And if they really were interested in interacting with other people, rather than, I mean, we don't do it when we shop. We don't do it with people we even like and we get along with who eat differently.
Well, I think that you're making some really good points, and I think that I would even start before you even get to the Whole Foods. There are 2 Whole Foods in San Diego County. I think there might be one more up in North County, so let's say 3. So anyone who goes to a Whole Foods is expending, unless they're actually getting on a bike and going there that way, they're expending, I don't even know how much fossil fuels in order to go there and get an organic pear. I have nothing against organic pears, and if you want to, but you're not making any less of a carbon footprint going to Whole Foods as you are going to Albertsons. And I think that that's one thing that people don't think, and I think that that's one thing that Whole Foods, since we're using Whole Foods as an example, doesn't want you to think about either. I think it's that whole thing of consuming a certain amount of progressivism, consuming a certain amount of, you're consuming justice. They're marketing to a certain kind of person. They want them to think a certain way. But Whole Foods doesn't like solicitation in terms of progressive causes any more than Walmart does or Target does. And that's very real, because one of the ways hopefully we're going to be able to have a chance to talk about being allies. And unfortunately, most of the stuff that I have specifically about being allies, I thought that I would be able to just pull up on the computer, and I can't read my computer. But there are some things here. One of the things that we could be doing in order to be allies is to do direct action with places that we know make and sell good food. The Henrys of the world, the Whole Foods of the world, to a smaller extent the Fresh and Easy's and the Trader Joe's of the world, none of which have outlets in predominantly minority or working class neighborhoods, with the exception of Fresh and Easy. Why aren't we asking? What is it? One of the things that I think that would be an easy way, just if you took away one action step, if you go to a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's on a regular basis, is to ask the manager, why aren't there any in lower income areas? The manager will sputter a little bit because they probably don't usually get that. And here's another question, would you be willing to not go there if you didn't get an answer that you liked?
What'd you say?
Would you be willing to not go to say, good Lord, would you be willing not to go to a Whole Foods or even a Henry's or a Windmill Farms if you didn't get an answer that they liked about why they don't site in certain neighborhoods? Windmill Farms. Whole Foods actually was pretty upfront about it. Their CEO about 3 years ago did a article for the Wall Street Journal, or no, it was the New York Times Magazine, and he was very clear about how he cited. He cited what he called into established places and aspirational places, and San Diego has 2 of those. The established one is in La Jolla Village. The more aspirational one is there. They are selling image. I want to make sure we don't throw that away. Thank you. They're selling image as much as anything else. And one of the things that we had talked about yesterday, one of the things that we had talked about yesterday was bike to work days. Anyone ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Well, they were talking about it. This is an aside, but it isn't really an aside. Why they didn't have more minority participation. They were talking about it specifically in the bastion of progressivism, that was San Francisco. And why it wasn't marketed heavily in more urban neighborhoods, and urban being code word for black and brown neighborhoods. And they basically said,